Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video series on Rahu and Ketu in the houses. And today we will be looking at Ketu in the fifth house. Okay. So the fifth house, as we all know, it represents the stomach. It rules the stomach and the spine. And as a result, the native may be prone to digestive problems because of Ketu's presence. There is also potential for damage to the spine or back, especially if Ketu in the fifth is afflicted by strong malefics. Okay. And usually such a person will almost always make bold pronouncements. Sometimes those pronouncements can be derogatory in nature, with little basis, in fact. Okay. And in the native's mind, truth is always nebulous, something to be shaped by his or her opinion or spun for dramatic value. But then, despite engaging in bouts of gamesmanship, such a native is likely to become bored, disenchanted, or repulsed by the demands of the game, to lose sight of the ball, as they say, and wander off into the left field. And since these people cannot stay focused for long, they will usually evade responsibility by taking frequent timeouts as well as vacations. Okay. Now, these people will also avoid accountability in relationships with people in the arts and entertainment, education, sports, and political fields. And these people have trouble deciding how to handle such relationships, and they will waffle back and forth, driven by impulse rather than by logic. Now, Ketu reflects ambivalence and dispersed attention. So, in the fifth, it implies diminished discernment. And although such a native may appear to be mentally sharp, the critical faculties of such a person are usually muddled. Okay. His or her ideas and judgment may be disconnected, incoherent, and sometimes nonsensical. Now, these people, they are bad students, okay, because the fifth house is also the house of learning. And as a result, they may suffer from attention deficit disorder. They may be prone to zoning out or getting easily distracted. And such a native is a woolly thinker, lacking intellectual rigor. He only works hard to get, such a student will work hard to get passing marks or passing grades, as they say. Now, the fifth house, it rules games, and as a result, the native may not take, intellectual discourses seriously. Such a person will play the game like an actor, concentrating too much on the performance without regard for facts, logic, or truth. And independent thought is difficult for these people, and that can force these people to rely on counsel. But then, because feelings overwhelm logic, the behavior of such a native is very unpredictable. Okay, sustained logical argument is hard for these people. So, if pressed too much to defend their position with facts, they come, let's say, unglued. Okay. And if they are called to account, then they will either double down or they will simply walk away without offering any explanation. Now, the native with Ketu in the fifth may experience, crisis of confidence, indecision, and unfocused thinking, often in a state of impatience. And because, Ketu is like Mars, so such a native may be very, impetuous and unplanned by nature. And given an unstructured way of thinking, the plans of such a native will often fall by the wayside, like a company with a brilliant marketing campaign that cannot deliver the goods. And if you look at such a native as a rational observer, you will see that such a person will have no game plan and is just flying by the seat of his or her pants. Okay. Now, under the principle of Bhavad Bhavam, the fifth house is the third from the third. So that indicates communications capacity. And since Ketu reflects apathy and dispersal, the native lacks the intellectual rigor to craft a cogent message. As a result, there is a muddle of arguments that happens. There is a lot of confusion regarding directives and propositions. And although a strong fifth lord may gift a good vocabulary or a dramatic delivery, Ketu in the fifth will imply an underlying, mental confusion. And The pronouncements of such a native are often unclear or subject to misinterpretation. And because these people lack a coherent strategy, you know, they are advised not to go into investment or speculation or even gambling, okay, because then they are more likely to lose than winning. And these people, they do not conduct market studies or risk benefit analysis and has no contingency plan. And they rely more on, hunches or intuition, good fortune, and social connections than they would care to admit. Okay. And creativity, intellectual work, even romance suffer from a lack of attention, commitment, or development from these natives. Okay, they are usually very ambivalent and indecisive, and they wander from one ephemeral attraction to another, often motivated only by the hope of material gain or social status. Now, when it comes to romantic license involving the fifth house, the native may be interested in social benefits rather than sex. And because Ketu is ambivalent, the prospect of naked contact with all its vulnerabilities can inhibit some individuals. Okay. And since Ketu in the fifth suggests abandonment by one's lover, these people may pursue only low commitment adventures, keeping his or her involvements fleeting and superficial. The fifth house also rules children. Okay. So some of the children, especially the firstborn, may appear disconnected, intellectually challenged, dreamy, or inattentive. And, the native accepts no responsibility. So child rearing may be a kind of laissez-faire. And the children of such a native are usually very unusual. Okay, they could be creative, inventive, or intellectually inclined. But then, because the nodes are disruptive, they may follow a path distinctly different from, from the native. And typical irregularities of life afflict them. Breaks in education, financial crisis, marital breakdowns, substance abuse, and even, getting cut off from your social circle. I've also seen in my readings that Ketu in the fifth can indicate a child with disability. And if such a Ketu is influenced by the sun, then the child may be attention demanding and controlling. If Ketu is influenced by the moon, then such a child may be very anxious and emotionally vulnerable. If Ketu is, impacted by Mars, then it can lead to a child who is very aggressive and defiant. If Ketu is influenced by Mercury, then there could be learning disabilities. If Ketu is influenced by Jupiter, then there could be weight problems. If it is Venus, if it is a Venusian influence on Ketu, then there could be drugs or sexual promiscuity. And if Ketu is influenced by Saturn, it could indicate a physical disability. Okay, so Ketu symbolizes abandonment, and in the fifth, it can mean adopting a foster child. Okay, and it could also mean a situation that the native is disconnected from one of the kids via loss of filial affection, maybe different intellectual viewpoint, financial misadventure, or even social disgrace. And more benignly, it can only indicate children who attend boarding school or cultivate foreign relationships. Okay. Now, the fifth house rules applied intellect and teaching. So the native may express his or her genius via the education of children. For example, such a native may have an aptitude for teaching kids with physical handicaps, learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, abandonment anxieties, and so on. Okay, so that's my analysis of Ketu in the fifth house. Do let me know if this resonates with you, and do leave behind your valuable comments in the comment section. And as always, if you want a consultation regarding your chart, you're most welcome to reach out at the number provided in the description box. I'll see you soon with the video of Rahu in the sixth house tomorrow at the same time. Namaste. Om Gurave Namah.